I know you think it's important, but can you like explain to a listener like how you started making connections and business relationships and like how you got your first client?
So I got my first client when I came from a real estate background. I knew a bunch of people in real estate, and I had picked up a camera, and then my wife got fired from her job, and we didn't know how to use a camera, didn't really know much about anything. And this is fall of 2015 at this point. And so we looked at what we had, and we were like, well, let's just figure out what's happened. Like, what do we have? She knew how to build some website stuff, and she knew a little bit about computers, like back-end programming. And I had just got like a Nikon D5100 kit lens and all. And I heard some real estate agents needed real estate photography done. And so I was like, let's try it out. This big fail. And then so I learned that I needed a wide lens. And so I got a wide lens.
So did you get a client and then you delivered bad photos?
Yep.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
A couple of times. Yeah, it took a couple of times, but because a lot of the clients too were too nice to tell me that. They're like, hey, I can't use those photos. I didn't find out until I looked at the photos online that they used somebody else. And I was like, those aren't our photos. So I learned that. But then I was like, okay, I should probably do a little bit of homework on like real estate photography. And so that's when I realized I need a wide lens. Got a wide lens, and that changed. And then it was just referral. So I would just post about, here's me taking pictures of the house. And then, fast forward 3 years, we were shooting 50, 60 houses a month, and no intention of starting a real estate photography business, but it was just it was a really good way to get the reps in, to learn how to do photos, and then learn how to do videos and build a network. And so that network would come from our work, thankfully. So it was just all referral. We never paid for ads. And then so when your work is its own kind of marketing tool, it just attracted a certain kind of person. It was a drone photo that I took in 2016 of a backyard that led me to that my buddy Eric saw. And then that was the one relationship that then just like, hey, can you do our photos? And this dude is the biggest, at the time, was probably the biggest real estate team in the city. And so I was like, yeah, we need this dude's listings, which was good. But then you realize how unleveraged, how not leverageable you are, because you're like, I need to keep this client, I need to keep the client happy. So then you're working weekends, you're doing everything you can to get everything done as fast as you possibly can, which is the pros and cons of real estate agents to work with. Fast forward though, another year or two, I started going with him on his speaking events and started recording him. It was very much like a Gary V, D-Rock relationship. So I'd kind of follow him around on those events. One thing led to another. We would travel around, film those. And then I started doing that with like kind of the region of people within Keller Williams. And then that just kind of grew and so forth. And then one thing led to another, and I started making vlogs for people, behind the scenes videos for people. And then since then, I still help create podcasts with Eric. So that's been a long time relationship, but there are just like some key players though that like you want to have relationships with, because you get along with them. You want to make sure that like if you're working with somebody, you do have like there is a mutual respect between the two, because otherwise if it's just like, all right, you make this, I make like that style just doesn't, I don't like that as much. I like to be a little bit more collaborative with my bigger clients. But otherwise it was the networking in the very beginning of just, I would like every once in a while I'd DM somebody, I'd respond or say like, hey, if you ever need photos, like they'd be new to the industry or something. Proud to announce I just started at FC Tucker or something like that. And I'd just DM them and say, hey, if you need listing photos, let me know. As simple as that. And so it was like those kinds of relationships in the very beginning. So that kind of answers how do I get my first client. The value of relationships with other creators comes in really handy when you don't have a $1,000 light that you're like, man, it'd be kind of nice to use that for a gig. And then you can call on a friend that has a C-stand as well. And then, because all of what I had shot up until then was like photos on a tripod or run and gun filming, but not a lot of setup interview shots. So then when I was able to call you and I was like, kind of C-stand and a light, then you were able to help me out with that. then those are like, that's like just one example amongst others of like being able just to, am I thinking this through clearly from my perspective? Because when you are in this industry, it's can be slightly isolating because you are doing something that a lot of people just think you're just doing it for fun. Like it's a hobby for a lot of people. And then it's like, okay, how do I make this work or whatever? So I don't know how many times I've talked to you about how should I write this into a contract, or should this end up like, should I just give this away? Then maybe this will do this or something. So we've talked a lot about strategy when it comes to retaining clients, which is really helpful. So those relationships are pretty important. I think I answered like 2.5 questions.
You did. The photo that you put up on the social from the backyard, was that before you had any clients and that propelled you into getting clients, or is that like you had a slow?
We had a pretty good amount of clients at that point.
Okay.
Yep. And then that was just kind of like, oh wow, now we got more clients, because then we'd have more listings. And yeah,
it was very similar story to me, and this isn't about me, but I'm just going to share this because I think hearing the same story on how do you start something back to back is helpful. I put up a video of my very smart, beautiful fiance, Alexis. I don't know if you know about her or not. Yeah.
I didn't know she was getting married. Wow.
We've been engaged for a long time. This isn't about me. But I put up a photo of her and I walking over a bridge over like a lily pond covered lake, and put like, I don't know, it was very like EDM, like heavy vlog days. You and me. And we're like walking across the bridge, and then her friend that's a marketing director, who I'd like nervously ask at an event. It's the first time I met them. I was like, do you ever need a video person? They're like, hi, my name's Rachel, and nice to meet you. I was like, yeah, I do video.
Oh, I love that.
I hadn't done any video for a paying person at the point. But like a year later, 6 months later, they saw that video. So it's crazy. It's like back to the just starting thing. Like you can't,
100%.
Everyone wants to know the next step. But there isn't a next step if you're not walking, right? There's a first step. I kind of like that. That's like a fortune cookie saying, man.
I like that.
Yeah.
Clip that, repeat it.
Clip that, repeat it. You should never say something and then say I like that after you said it. That is the worst personality trait. And I don't know how
Sometimes
I do
talking
that.
out loud helps though. When you're like, oh yeah, I like the way I put that. That's pretty good.